And I'm actually a member of Sunnyvale Church, but I'm part of the Chris Foundation team. And we have a small sampling of our team here today, but we wanted to share with you a little bit about our mission trip this summer. And some of you may ask, why should I go on a mission trip? Well, this is an opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And the Chris mission trips, one of the cool things about them is they're family friendly. So we actually do bring our kids. So this is my third mission trip on the trip, or third time on a mission trip. My first time I was pregnant with my daughter. My second time I was pregnant with my son, and my third time, and had my daughter there. And the third time we all three went. So we are a little crazy, but it is possible. So we do encourage you guys, these are biennial trips, which means every 2 years we go. So this summer we will not go, but the following year. So you have plenty of time to prepare to come on our next trip. So we wanted to share with you guys this morning. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So you can see here that our Chris mission, this is Kids Rise, Inspire, Soar. It says here the foundation story is by Chrissy DeFalla. And typically, you think about a campfire analogy. You cannot have a campfire without a spark. And Chrissy is kind of like our spark. It's her story that has started this whole foundation and started these mission trips. And she is not here today, but she was able to leave us a little video. So we're going to, at this time, watch a video by Chrissy DeFalla to share her story with us.
Hi everyone. So I'm really sorry that I can't be there today in person to tell you guys this, but I hope you guys are still blessed. So for those of you that don't know, I'm the founder of the Chris Foundation, and this is how the Chris Foundation came to be. So when I was an orphan in the Philippines, in the Davao, Philippines, and I was adopted by my two loving parents, Mike and Mimi Dufala, and they took me into their home and they raised me with a lot of love and a lot of care, and I was definitely blessed to be raised by them. And when I was about 6, almost 7 years old, they took me back to the orphanage that I was adopted from, and we got to visit that place. And it was really cool. We decided to make it a fun thing, and we brought cake and ice cream with us. So we had like a party. And when we brought cake and ice cream with us, I got to see at about 6 or 7 years old how much I was taking for granted as an American child. So I knew that I wanted to make these kids as happy as they were with this cake and ice cream, and I wanted them to be that happy for the rest of their lives. So I started a program called Sweets for the Holidays, which is where we raised a bunch of money and held sweets parties for orphanages, and eventually that went global. And after that, we just kept building, and we started building playgrounds for orphanages. And then eventually, I told my mom, I was like, Mommy, I want to build an orphanage. And she was like, oh, maybe in 5, 6 years. But just in 2 years ago, which would have been 5 years, we broke ground for the Chris campus, and now it's up and running, and we have our first family in there. And we have the 3 beautiful children who are no longer orphans because they have a home to call their own, and new siblings, and a beautiful, loving pair of parents. And it was just an amazing experience to be able to go over there just this past summer and really see how much these children have changed since they have moved into the Chris campus. And it really is just amazing to see something that was just a dream, just an idea, become a reality, and how much it's changing other people's lives, not just mine, not just my parents, not just the people here, but also people across the globe. How much it's been affecting them, and it's just amazing to see that these kids that used to be hoping for their next meal, not knowing where it's going to come from, and that's all they wanted, now actually have hope for a future, and have hope for learning new things, and eventually studying to become something, like a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. All these kids that didn't have a lot of hope for where they were going to sleep now have like so much hope, and you can just see the sparkle in their eyes that all 5-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 11-year-olds should have. And I think that is just amazing because it shows me that anything is possible with God, because this wouldn't be possible without Him, and He really wanted this to happen because there were so many things that could have gone wrong, but they all just went right. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone here at Cameron Park that's helped us out and given us so much support, because without you guys, this would not have been possible. And I just hope you guys know that you're making dreams come true. And also, I want to thank God for providing everything that we need, including all our lovely supporters. So, thank you guys so much.
This is one of the reasons I joined Chris Foundation. What a story, and just an inspiration to see a young person that loves the Lord so much and was blessed by her own story, that she wants to make life easier for other orphans that are out there. And that's what Chris Campus is all about. So you can see here, this is the master plan that we're building currently in the Philippines. And at this time, we're going to invite Nene DeFalo to come up and share a little bit about the journey and what's happening right now.
Happy Sabbath, church. For those of you who may not know, I just flew in from the Philippines last night, and still pretty jet lagged. I woke up at 3:30 a.m. and sent out a reminder message to the team. And Faith was also up around 4 and responded to me. I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyways, yeah, I went because my mom was hospitalized, sick with pneumonia, and thank you so much for all of the prayers. We actually only had hours and we would have lost her. Good thing she was rushed to the hospital at the early dawn hours, and they did not wait till morning. And so she's back and recovering. So I was there with her for a couple of weeks, and so I just flew in last night and joined the presentation today. And I forgot to pack my quarterly, and so I was actually catching up. This morning it was good that I had to wake up real early, and then I read, the chapter on God's call, and it says that does God call each person to a specific task? Are there criteria that make someone more qualified than others for a certain task? Are those criteria different in human eyes than God's? Most of us would probably say yes, especially to the last 2 questions. So it just kind of brought to my mind about how God has called Chrissy. She's very young and impressionable, and so it was more like Bonnie has said, it's a spark that was used by God, so that now our family, my husband and I, are supporting her, and it's become our mission. And then we have the Chris Foundation team that has also embraced the mission, and this church has embraced the same mission. And so it's just amazing how God works. So when Chrissy mentioned about building an orphanage, I was like, yeah, I didn't really know where it would go. And so I just said, yeah, maybe 5 to 6 years or so, sweetie. But then God had other plans. He knows that He just needs to inspire Chrissy to think up of something, from like little birthday parties at orphanages, building playgrounds, just like the scope was going up and up, larger and larger, and then now the orphanage. And then, long story short, God made a way for this to happen. And so, as she has said, we have like different people, different organizations, different groups, just came out of the woodworks, and so this is what we had, like in early 2017, the site plan for the orphanage. And the other thing that was pretty cool is God actually made arrangements so that we partnered up with a local team in the Philippines who's being sponsored by the Central Philippine Adventist Conference and also the local conference. So it's a Seventh-day Adventist conference, and so where we're at, where this site is, the land is actually appropriated by the Central Philippine Union Conference. So it's pretty cool. It's close to like the Adventist Medical Center and so on and so forth. So God could not have chosen a better location. And it's also a long story how we ended up there, how we connected. That's a story for another time. But it's just suffice to say that God is just amazing. And so this is the plan. We have the phase 1 where we plan to build 2 homes. Home 1 is done. And as Chris has mentioned, there's already a family living there. Home 2 is also done with the construction, and so the family will be moving in within the next few weeks. So we've opted for a family model where there's a mom and a dad in each home to mimic the family environment. And each home will have capacity for 10 to 12 kids. So the entire plan is to have 5 homes, so it will be a facility of 50 to 60 kids, 5 families, and who knows what God has plans, but that's the current site plan. So we have, last summer, we went and built a playground for the kids, which was very timely because when we visited with the kids, they were like hanging on the doorknobs and so on. So it's like, God's timing is always perfect, guiding us. You have to build a playground. So now they have a playground that they can play and release that kind of energy. We also, we thank the Sunnyvale Church for funding, providing funding for the playground. And then we also built the prayer garden. We call it the Garden of Eden. And it's right now, it's really cool. It's flowers and so the neighboring church. It's also there's a Seventh-day Adventist church which is adjacent to the campus for them to also enjoy it during Sabbath afternoon. There's a vegetable garden that's ongoing, and the next up that we're building is the administration building, which will also house the community services, base for community services, and a clinic. So that's the next building. And we also thank the Sunnyvale Church for contributing quite a big sum of funds for that building. So God's opening doors everywhere to help out with the project. So if it's His work, we need not worry. God always provides.
Amen.
So yeah, so that's really amazing, and I'm just really thankful that God called and we answer the call, and then He's allowed us to experience amazing things.
Amen.
Next slide, please.
Thank you for sharing. So this next slide will tell you a little bit about what we did on our trip here. But first of all, I want to ask you, how many of you guys have ever traveled somewhere else and went to an Adventist church outside of the United States? Awesome. Okay. So one of the cool things about this mission trip, or these mission trips that we do, is that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is part of a global community, and it's beautiful. So wherever you go around the world, you could actually worship with another community, and it's a similar style of worship. So you'll notice here that on these mission trips, we had a U.S. team of 20 people, but if you look down here, the local volunteers were over 70 people. So the volunteers that we got were from the Philippines. They lived there. And Nene mentioned that there's an Adventist hospital, Bacolod Adventist Hospital, that's right there. So nurses, doctors, all different kinds of individuals that were able to help us on that trip. So the U.S. team, the DeFalo family, Gotke is my name, the Height family, Strauchs, Mike Case, Matthew Hanna's here, Selma and Kalani Olds, Narita Sharp, and Faith Victoriano, and also her niece and nephew. We had 6 Philippine team members, 12 local from the local partner team. I mentioned 70 was the volunteers. So this is amazing. We just had a great time, and the American team was just a small portion of that. So again, God's body around the world. It's a beautiful thing. The things that we did while we were there, we had our kids' story time. We had a couple volunteers there. One day we did a free medical and dental clinic, and we had eyeglasses, reading glasses that were there for individuals to pick up. And we had over 50 people helping out, 4 drivers. Total, all of this, over 100 people helping. So this is amazing. This is really cool. We also want to thank the Cambrian Park Seventh-day Adventist Church, because you guys are a big part of that. You helped us with the International Food Fair this year, and just supporting Chris Foundation. Thank you so much for that. Next slide, please. So our projects during the trip, we had, our first big project was playground construction. So Nene mentioned that we went to the site of the campus, and Genesis, the first home, had just been built. The kids were there, so there were, the house parents had 2 kids of their own, and there were 3 other kids, so 5 total that were there. And they were all over us, which was amazing, and all over my kids. So we were loving that, but they really needed a place to play. So we provided a playground for them, and you'll see that and hear more about that in a minute. We also had a Garden of Eden project that was led by Narita Sharp, and her mother passed away, and so she took the proceeds, some of the inheritance, and basically built this beautiful Garden of Eden with, I don't know, a hut, I'm not sure what two native-looking huts where you could rest, and then just beautiful plants that were there to have a peaceful atmosphere. We had 2 orphanage visits while we were there. One was the Santo Niño Children's Home, over 35 kids that were there. And then we had Calvary kids, 175 kids. So both of these we were able to do a pizza and ice cream party with them. And then also the Calvary kids, I think, was the one that we did a gingerbread build-off with the kids. Free medical and dental clinics, so we served over 500 people and prayed with them as they came through. Dental hygiene, you'll hear more about that, but that's 250 kids over that were served. We did a VBS, or Kids Story Time, where we had 75 local kids that we were able to meet, to share Jesus with from the local preschool, and then local excursions. But I would say probably the highlight of all of this was the last one, morning and evening devotions. And we had Greg Height, and then we had Pastor Joe Strock that led out in those devotions. But you guys are probably, you're probably familiar in your own experience. If you start your day out with God, something different happens. It's like you hit a reset button, right? And so these devotions, we would get together at the Bacolod Adventist Center, we would have breakfast together, we would go in a special room there, and then we would just sing together and just start sharing about what happened from the day before. We would have a message, and just that bonding time would reset us, and then also we would close up at the end of the day and start with Jesus, end with Jesus. And everything in between was amazing because of those worships. Next slide, please. So our campus playground, I mentioned, is a big part of that, and this was led by Greg Height. He's not able to be here today, but my husband Steve was the construction leader on that. So I'm going to bring him up right now, and he's going to share a little bit about some of the challenges and then God moments that happened through the playground construction.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Steve. I won't call up my friend Matt, but he's sitting over here. He was also very helpful. putting together along with Greg. I just want to tell you about, it seems such a simple thing to us here to be able to, well, maybe it's not that simple to pull out a piece of playground equipment and put it together, but it seems like it shouldn't be that hard. You just pull out a bunch of directions and you follow them step by step. And one thing I've learned, I've been on not too many, but a few mission trips, and you realize from the very first one that something is going to go wrong. And the thing we found here is that this is what happens when you try to save a little money to get a little more, and you buy something that was perhaps somebody started to put it together before. And we found that pretty much all the pieces and parts were there, but there were two things missing. One, well actually they're the same thing, a 3/16" Allen wrench. That shouldn't be a problem. They actually have hardware stores over in the Philippines. We can go and pick up something that we need to put this together. But, you know, they mostly use the metric system over there. And 5 millimeters is not exactly the same as 3/16". And that fits in one part of it, but not the other. If you've ever tried to turn these things with your fingers, or take this 5 millimeter wrench and jam it in there, you find it does not quite work. You know, when we go on mission trips, when we do anything for God, we're always going to find pieces that don't work, pieces that don't fit. And to me, I find this is an opportunity for God to bless, an opportunity to talk to people who can help you. You know, eventually we were able to find the right person, who could find just the right store, who could find the tool that we need to put this together. We don't always have the tools we need right away. In fact, sometimes we go out and try to put something together and we find that we feel incapable. We feel that God has placed us as a tool in this situation to do the work, and we feel like we're the wrong tool. And yet when we get there, He molds us and shapes us into the right shape to do it. And it's kind of a long way to talk about how to put together a playground. But we did find that even though everything took us longer and sometimes takes us longer to put it together, what seems to be a simple thing to us ends up being a tremendous blessing to the kids that we leave behind. And we were able to put something together that we left behind. And it wasn't just a playground for the kids to play with. This was the second time that I got to go to this very same site and see it build up from nothing to something with an active family there. And not just the people who were living there at the site, but the church members who were at the church who were there. They remembered us, we remembered them. We realized that we were not building just playgrounds, we were building relationships. And this is something you can't replicate by just sending money overseas, as helpful as that is. Actually going there and making connection with people was something that I will never forget. And we weren't just making a connection with the church members there. We found that as we were building playground, we didn't take a break, and all of a sudden we would go in the house and we got to meet these little girls who were going to live and play in this place that we were building. And that made everything much more meaningful, that we could share our love with those who needed it the most. We could interact with them, and hopefully they will remember us. Anyway, that's my story.
All right, thank you, Steve. Our next piece is the Garden of Eden, and we're going to call Nanang Defala up, and she's going to talk to us about that as well as the orphanage visits.
This is really amazing because Narina Sharp, she is a board director of Chris Foundation, and she's not even a Seventh-day Adventist, that she is very committed to the project. And she's been with us from the very beginning. And when we go on these mission trips, and she joined, this is the first time that she joined the mission trip, and she was just very committed in creating this Garden of Eden, and donated by their own funds in honor of her mom who recently passed. And so, it was amazing as this whole garden just took shape, and it's very beautiful. And now, as you can see, like the kids are really enjoying it. With the playground, they play, but then sometimes it gets very hot. And so then, when it's very hot in the playground, they migrate into the prayer garden. And also in the prayer garden, there's, as Bonnie has mentioned, there's like this native Filipino hut. And so the kids would hang out there and just like having a great time, learning songs, the famous Adventist, kids songs. And so it's really just bringing everything into the campus. So we're just like building it one section at a time. And now it's just a blessing also to the church nearby, and also for the community. So it's just another component of the project that we were really very happy. We didn't quite know how it would take shape, but then when Norita was done, it was beautiful. So they're adding now all of the displays with the Bible verses, so that when you're actually just doing like meditation and prayer, that you are experiencing Jesus in this place. Next slide, please. Okay, so the orphanage visits are always one of my favorite parts of the trip, because when you go, it's so inspiring to see all of these people, the very committed people who take care of children. So in this mission trip, we visited a couple of orphanages. The Santa Niño Children's Home, there's quite a story with this one. In fact, my husband Mike was in the sound there. It's like, we really need to go back there. Because 2 years ago, we visited this orphanage. It's a Catholic orphanage. And it was kind of a quick replacement because the one that we really wanted to visit was not available for us 2 years ago. And so when we got there, we were doing like, Chrissy says, here, sweets for the holidays. We have all of this, the cake and ice cream. And then the nun-administrator, she's like, are you supposed to be visiting us today? And like, yeah, it was prearranged. And so she was not quite sure about the visit. And then when we started the ice cream and all that, and she was like, we have this policy of no sugary, no junk food, for the orphanage. And I'm like, oh, this is not going well. And so then I'm like, I shared Chris's story, and then she said, okay, let's make an exception. And so we kind of got the cake and ice cream. And then as we were doing this, I was talking to them, and I'm like, can you use some rice? Because we always donate rice and clothes and all that. And her face just lit up. This was 2 years ago, and she's like, we've been praying for rice because we have we're really critically low, and they've been like talking to potential donors and whatnot. And I'm like, well, tomorrow you will have 500 pounds of rice. And so after that, it was like everything was like open to us, even like their toddlers can eat ice cream and cake, and it was amazing. So then we said, well, you know, Mike was like, we have to, you know, to visit them again. But isn't that an amazing story that I really, you know, felt that, you know, God used us, you know, to answer their prayer. And so we visited them this time around, and we brought the biggest pizza ever. I kid you not, this is like huge, you know, pizza that's like, it's probably like a huge table. And so we serve it with a lot of food, because we learned our lesson that we should not be serving cake and, you know, and other stuff. So we actually had pizza and soy milk from the hospital, and so we just had the greatest of time. We gave them, we played games, and so that was really cool, the return visit. Next slide, please. So this is the second orphanage that we visited. This is called the Calvary Kids. It's an evangelical orphanage. It's actually run by missionaries here from the Bay Area. So it's pretty cool. It was like well run, very big, 175 kids. And so what we did, in addition to all of the donated clothes and shoes and toys and all that, so we decided, you know, like some of you here have been to the Chris Foundation annual gingerbread build-off. So we decided we're going to do a gingerbread build-off challenge. And we have some teens, Chrissy, Noah, there are 4 of them. So prior to that, we had them do a dry run. So we have to make sure we know what we're doing and what we can, what supplies we need. And so we did, the theme was gone camping. So as you can see, the kids were just like so creative. It's amazing what they have created at this place, and we just had the greatest of time. But the most inspiring thing for me is when I see the staff and the missionaries that have dedicated their lives to give hope for these children. And it's always amazing to us that they're also sharing their experiences and lessons learned with us as we're bringing up the Chris Campus Children's Homes. So it's like always a blessing to visit orphanages. So thank you. Next slide, please.
Is it possible we can go back a slide for 1 second? I was just, while Nadine was talking, I was thinking about one of the things that really inspired me about the second orphanage is Calvary Kids Home is a special needs orphanage. And you have a number of kids that were there in wheelchairs or that couldn't talk or couldn't eat properly with tubes, with all kinds of stuff like feeding tubes. And the older kids would buddy up with a younger kid, and without complaint, they would, when we were doing like, you know, cake and ice cream and different things, they would feed each other. And I just looked at this, and a couple of kids I came by, they're teenagers, and I've taught teenagers for years, and I know that teenagers have a tendency to be somewhat selfish. And these kids, I said, hey, thank you so much for what you're doing. This is really awesome. You guys are making a difference. And they're like, why wouldn't we do this? These are our brothers and sisters. And it just really impacted me because, you know, here these teenagers are, and they view the other kids in the orphanage, this is our family. You know, these are our brothers and sisters, and they're willing to feed each other, take care of each other, wipe each other's face, and do all this kind of stuff. And I thought, man, that's why I'm going on these mission trips, because here we think we're being a blessing, and we come back sometimes receiving so much more of a blessing than we gave. Next slide, please. So my project was actually the Kids Story Time, and I worked on this with Kumiko Hyde, who's a member of the Mountain View Japanese Church, and we were really excited about this opportunity. It was funny because when we planned going on the trip, this always happens on mission trips, we heard 50 kids, you're going to have, or 50 kids at the Kids Story Time, and then it was 75 kids are going to come. And then it was over 100 kids are going to come. So we're like, okay, scrambling for supplies. And we need to give a shout out to the Mountain View Japanese Church. We actually borrowed a curriculum for VBS from them, and that was really helpful. But we had a couple challenges. First of all, the Philippines in the summer is very, very hot. So if you've ever been there, we were just sweating, and we're working inside a small church that is on the Chris campus property. There's a couple fans on the side, but they're not working well. We're just hot. And then we were trying to figure out the orientation. So we would meet in the church and we would do song service with the kids who didn't speak the same language as us. And then we would break up into craft time and story time and game time. And so we had different stations there. And we had 4 teenagers that were on our trip that were amazing, including Chrissy. And they would work with the different groups and take them to their different stations and rotate around. So the second problem, besides the heat, is how do we tell a story to kids that don't understand English and we don't speak their language? So we were able to talk to some of the conference personnel there, and they found a couple local individuals that were incredible storytellers, and they were able to translate the story. And so we had Miss Melba, and who was the other? I can't remember the other lady's name, but they would come, and we had the local preschool that they would walk down and do story time with us. And our theme was Fishers of Men. So just seeing these little kids that didn't speak a lot of English, and they're singing, "I will make you fishers of men if you follow me." And our theme was learning to follow Jesus. And it was beautiful. Not only that, but seeing my kids standing up there and singing, "I will make you fishers of men," or "Jesus loves me," along with their kids. And just, there's no difference in, we might be born in a different country, we might speak a different language, but we're all children of God, right? And the beautiful thing about watching my kids sing alongside and do crafts alongside kids from another country and all learning to follow Jesus, I just loved it. Okay, so those are my challenges. Another God moment that was out of this VBS experience was I have 2 small kids. And so trying to figure out, Josie's pretty good, she can sit down, but Drew is still moving all over the place. How in the world was I going to lead? Song service was easy because we're all doing motions and it's fun, but crafts you kind of have to sit a little bit. And my son does not sit a little bit. So I was praying, Lord, please help me to be able to lead the craft portion and figure out how to do this. God had some amazing miracle Benadryl that hit my son at 10 a.m. every morning. He would do VBS and sing his songs, and then all of a sudden, even though we're on a completely different time schedule, he took a nap. So I was like, praise Jesus, this is amazing. So all in all, we had a great story time. He's going to come up here. We had over 100 kids, and you guys could see the pictures of the playground. When we inaugurated the playground, all 100 of those kids came and they were so excited about singing songs. That's okay, we'll just have them stand right here. So that was our amazing day. Next slide, please. Our second, or the next thing I'm going to talk about is the free medical and dental clinic. Can you stay up here, Drew? So the free medical and dental clinic, we worked with a local team from McCullough Adventist Hospital of doctors and nurses, and one cool thing, we have a lady in Sunnyvale Church that, I won't say her name, but she's an elderly lady, and it was really important for her to come up and find me a church and give me these boxes, 3 boxes of eyeglasses, reading glasses that she had collected. She had cancer, and she was not feeling very well, and so she made a point to find me and bring these eyeglasses. Well, I thought to myself, man, this is really amazing. And then we got to the Philippines at this clinic, and we saw how quickly the reading glasses just went. So we had a line of people, we had a little script that was in their language. Josie, sit down, please. We had a little script that was in the language. Sit down, sit down. No. And they would read the script that was in their language, and then they would take a pair of eyeglasses as soon as the script was clear. All of a sudden, it was amazing. I would see their faces light up. We didn't speak the same language, but they were super excited. So God was working miracles from the lady in Sunnyvale Church all the way until the eyeglass delivery. The last thing I want to mention with this is you guys can see Matt is over here, and I know he doesn't want to speak today, but if you can look up, there's a slide over here on the top right, a picture of him, and he's praying. So we had a team of prayer warriors that as people came through, they worked with a local pastor, Pastor Guma, and they decided that they were going to come up with a prayer station. And so they didn't ask anybody, would you like to pray? They just moved through the prayer station. And it was really amazing. Pastor Joe Stroff shared at Sunnyvale Church how amazing it was for him to just pray with different individuals and to hear them open up about different problems. And some spoke the same language. Pastor Guma spoke the local language, so we were able to pray with over 500 people at that free medical clinic. Amazing miracle. Okay, our next slide is a very important part. We did an oral hygiene education in one of the local elementary schools, and we're going to call up Dr. Faith Victoriano, and she's going to share her experience about that.
It's good to join the mission trip, right? Because we have personal experiences, how God's love is using us as what they all mentioned about being the hands and feet of Jesus. If I'm gonna go back in this personal experience, in this personal journey with the goodness of God and the blessings of God, from before the mission trip and during and after the mission trip, I want to share that with you. Before the mission trip, I joined the very first dental mission clinic that I co-led with the Sunnyvale Church in Philippines. And there was always long lines of people wanting to have their teeth extracted. So it was never ending. I'm like, when is this line gonna end? They just all from kids, children, parents brought their children, and teenagers would tell me, I want this tooth extracted. And adults, and when they come to this age, only have few teeth left. So I was like, this is not what it is supposed to be. So I was burdened by that, and I said, in my next mission trips, I don't feel rewarded by just going to another dental clinic where I'm gonna extract teeth, and it feels like the people in the Philippines were not really putting a lot of importance to their own teeth. So I would say that with the little resources I have and with the little energy I have, maybe I would just start educating children. And that was back in 2015. And then 2016, I heard about the Chris Foundation, and I met Nene. And I went to her house, and then she was telling me about the mission of Chris Charitable Foundation. And God just has a very good sense of humor that the Chris Foundation started with sweets for the holidays, giving cakes and ice creams to kids. And then here I come in, and maybe God is just telling us, okay, we need to balance this. We need to give toothbrush and toothpastes next time, and give an importance to oral health and how important it is, in your day-to-day life, not to have pain in your mouth, and it's important in nutrition to take care of your own body. So that's how it came about, and a little part, it's just a little part of the Chris programs, the oral hygiene education. But this is just so good for the Chris Foundation to team up with God and see where it goes, where it leads. So during the mission trip, I don't know how it's going to come up. I was just said, okay, Lord, I will experiment with you. And one more thing, with all the experiences I have with you, I surrender this, truly surrender how you want this to come up with to make the oral hygiene more exciting, more interactive for kids, for children. So he came up with all of this program with the help of the internet, going online, and people like co-workers and an opportunity, a platform for colleagues and co-workers and other people to help out from here in the Bay Area and their local in the Philippines. So there's a school that was, very willing to work with us, and the principal was very thankful during that time because she said, I personally also want to let you know that we were praying that there will be stakeholders who will help us build a washing station or help us with, support to increase our, they said, status as a school. So they're very thankful and blessed that we came in. So during that time, it was not just me who did this project, but with the help of each member of the team. We were able to educate 250 plus kids from first grade to third grade because of the help of each team member. So, and then after that, so that was during, the mission trip. And after that, now they're carry on this campaign, the oral hygiene campaign, where 3 nonprofit organizations team up, Chris Foundation, Kids Delightful Grounds, and Rotary Club of Bacolod. They team up in order to have this monthly oral hygiene campaign, education campaign, where they're going to encourage kids during the flag ceremony in the morning. If they do their 2-minute, 2 times a day brush, they check off the calendar, and after 6 months, and we will, with all the participation of the kids and reinforcement of this habit. So that is what is needed for the kids to have this habit of oral hygiene, daily oral hygiene. Then they will have what they needed, which is a washing station in that school. So it's really awesome for a personal experience that God just asks for our availability and not our ability. And He will put all together and throughout the years. So it's just another affirmation of what God has promised me in Psalm 121:8, that the Lord will guide your coming and going, both now and forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. So our next project here was, well, not a project, but our mission trip celebration. So we were able to have kind of like the grand opening of all of our projects, or the grand finale, and we're going to invite Nene to come up here and share a little bit about that.
Yes, it's actually amazing because at the end, this was the day before the end of our mission trip. It was July 4th. And so we had like the local government officials came, and so we partnered with them. We've established relationship, just like Steve has said. And in fact, the village captain was the one that also arranged, to level out our, the ground using the government equipment and all that. So it was pretty cool. And so then we had that celebration where the kids came, the Kids Story Time kids came and played on the slide and the playground. And we just had such a great time together. And the church leadership, the Negros, the island where the children's homes are at, came and cut the ribbons and all that. So we had probably over 100 people, and then the Kids Story Time kids were doing the the singing and their memory verses, and so it was like a really cool celebration to end all of the projects. So it was amazing.
Next slide, please. The very last thing that we wanted to share before our mission trip video is our kids' Chris Campus Children's Home. Just kind of the latest updates here. So you can see it says Home 1, Genesis, and Home 2. I believe Home 2 is now built. We mentioned that there are 3 orphan kids that are there, and the 2 house parents, the kids of the house parents. So there's 5 kids. Eventually there will be 5 homes and up to 10 kids in each home. Just so you're aware of this, they're called non-adopt orphanages. So these will be their family. We don't want the kids to worry, will I get adopted? When will I get adopted? When will I leave? This is their family. So we find Christian house parents that are godly individuals that will model what a family is like, and they can bring their own kids as well, have their own kids as well. And we have those, this is their job, this is their family, and those kids that are adopted in will come and stay in that home, and until they're 18 years old. At 18 years old, they have a choice to leave or stay, but this is their family. And what a beautiful experience to share, a picture of the family of God, because we were all orphans as well, and Christ adopted us, right? So here we have, I mentioned Home 1 is done, Home 2 is now done. We're going to be building the administration building soon. The Garden of Eden is already built, but this is an ongoing project. And I just wanted to share a little bit about these kids. So you can see, probably one of the better pictures is the one on the right here. And you can see all their faces. The 3 kids in that picture, there's Charmel, that's 11 years old, Francesca, that's 8, and Rochelle, that's 5. And when they were adopted or brought into Home 1, they had not had any schooling at all. So there was no recognition of letters, or they couldn't read, they couldn't write, any of that. So these are some of the updates on the kids that we wanted to share with you. Francesca is, the 8-year-old, is now talking. She wasn't talking before. And one of the amazing things, we don't know what level of abuse these kids have experienced. Some of these kids have gone without food for a while, and they were used to just finding food wherever. The house parents, the house mom had mentioned to us that when the kids first came in, they were eating like crazy. So she just couldn't keep up with the amount of food that she was providing for them. And now they've realized that they don't have to worry about where food's going to come from. Food is provided 3 times a day. It's a consistent thing in their life. And so the level of eating has gone down. It's more consistent because they don't just have to hoard food for survival. So that was amazing. They've had a family outing together. I mentioned Francesca started talking, and she was 8 years old and hadn't really spoken, so there was a reason for that, but we don't know. Rochelle just celebrated her birthday, and she's 5. This was the first birthday party that she's ever had, and she had a cake, and she was so excited about that cake. So just to see these kids, the smiles on their faces, and when we were able to inaugurate the playground and open up the playground and have these kids like hanging out on the slide and the swing, and they were just giggling, oh, it's just amazing to see their smiling faces. So that's what we want to share. Thank you so much for listening, and church, thank you for supporting us, and we hope that some of you guys will decide to come with us in 2 years. And so now we'll watch our mission trip video.